night was breaking. The shadows, once thick and obedient, began to unravel beneath her feet, growing thin, brittle, unreliable. Seranna ran, barefoot over moss and stone, through trees that clawed at her robes and memory alike. Her breath came shallow, though not from exhaustion. It was the sun, the dreadful, inevitable sun. It hunted her in a way no man ever could. She had misjudged the distance. A few minutes more, and her shadow step would have returned her safely to the dark hold buried beneath the mountain's spine. But arrogance and nostalgia had delayed her. Now she was paying for both. The forest gave way to an open field, and beyond it, perched like an afterthought upon the earth, stood a house, large, old, wood-beamed and stone-backed, reclusive, removed from time, a sanctuary. She crossed the field like a dying ember, smouldering as the first hints of sunlight licked the horizon. Her body screamed for shadow, for soil, for the cold breath of safety. The house had no wards, no symbols, no salt at the threshold, just a door that opened when she willed it, soft as a sigh, silent as a confession. Inside, darkness, cool, patient darkness, the kind that waited rather than crept. She staggered into the hall, her limbs trembling, not from fear, but hunger and the curse. The sun outside now painted the edges of the windows gold. She sank into the deep corner of the drawing room, where the shadows held firm, letting the black cling to her skin like balm. No one was there, but then music. A faint scratch, a soft swell, a cello, aching its way into the air. It was not from a phone or a screen. It was the haunted crackle of vinyl, the breathing ghost of a record player. Seranna moved toward it like a phantom, gliding through shadow, careful to avoid the creeping daylight on the floorboards. She saw him. A man. Late 20s, perhaps. Unshaven, not in the careless way of youth, but the way of someone who no longer kept count. He sat in a worn armchair, one hand resting on the side of his face, eyes not open or closed, but lost in something far beyond the walls around him. He did not see her, not yet. She studied him. The music he played was not cheerful. It was not meant to be. It was something else, like grief, that had learned to sit still. He listened not for pleasure, but understanding, as if the strings of the cello might unpick the knots in his chest. What haunts him, she wondered. What silence does he feed with such sound? But beneath the curiosity, hunger, the throb of it, the burn behind the ribs, the calling in her blood. She stepped forward, a little more, enough to feel the beat of his heart from across the room. It would be so easy, so effortless, to end it, take, feed, leave. But Eldritch's words returned to her, sharp as glass. If you do not know their pain, you do not deserve their blood. If you do not see their truth, you are only a monster with teeth. She clenched her jaw. That voice again, always him, always echoing. And yet, she had listened. She had changed, hadn't she? Still, she remembered, there was a time when she would have drunk him dry and smiled as he fell. She had done it before, dozens of times. A century ago, her thirst had been laced with fury, a fury that burned for every slight, every betrayal, every loss. Back then, Seranna had wanted the world to drown, not in blood, in obedience. She did not simply want to survive the humans. She wanted to end them, to rule over the ashes of their kingdoms, with a throne carved from their gods. She was their reckoning, or so she believed. But now, crouched in shadows in another man's home, she felt something unfamiliar press against her ribs. Shame. It crawled like frost, slow, uninvited. She watched the man reach forward and gently flip the record. The needle crackled again. Another song, slower, darker, a requiem for something unnamed. Who are you? She wondered again. What pain do you carry? And could it taste like mine? She did not move. The hunger whispered, a constant, coiling thing, but Seranna remained still, her body hidden where the light dared not reach. The man had not seen her. Not yet. Not fully. She watched from the dark like a ghost too ashamed to haunt. Outside, morning had come. The golden blaze of it poured in through the windows, spilling across the wooden floors like molten judgment. She turned her gaze toward it and immediately recoiled. Even the reflection of sunlight was agony. Her eyes ached. Her skin winced. She had once danced in firelight as a girl. Now even the echo of day threatened to unmake her. But the shadows remained her refuge. As long as she did not cross the line where gold met gloom, she was safe. She curled deeper into the shadowed corner, her back against the cold stone wall. The music played on, strings that mourned and rose as if someone had taught the cello how to cry without a voice. And then he spoke. At first, it was a murmur, the kind spoken not to a person, but to a memory. It's always the ones you give everything to, he said, eyes not leaving the spinning vinyl. The ones you tear yourself open for, that end up slipping the knife between your ribs. Seranna tilted her head. His voice carried weight, but not rage. The sharpness had dulled. This wasn't fresh pain. This was settled pain, the kind that no longer screams. It just sits beside you and stays. I thought I knew her, he continued, quieter now. I did everything right. I gave her everything. I listened. I was there and still. His hand tightened into a fist, not angry, just needing to hold something. Still, she left. Still, she lied. Still, she looked me in the eye like I meant nothing, like I never existed. The words bled out, like old wounds reopening. The man leaned forward, elbows on knees, staring down at the floor as though the grain in the wood might offer answers. I know it's my fault, he said, after a pause. Somehow, I don't even know how. But it always is, isn't it? Seranna watched him closely now. The shape of his sorrow was familiar. Too familiar. The ache of it made something shift inside her, something older than blood, older than the hunger. She knew this pain, not as a predator, but as the girl she once was. Before fangs, before eternity, she saw it now, not in the man's face, but in the way he curled into himself, that hollow space where love had once sat. She had carried that same emptiness long ago. She too had been left, lied to, broken. She had been betrayed, and the girl that rose from those ashes had become a monster. He sat still for some time. The record had ended. The room held its breath, and then he moved. Seranna did not blink. The shadows around her pulsed slightly, as if they too knew what was coming. The man stood slowly, not with purpose, but the weight of exhaustion. His limbs carried the slump of someone not simply tired, but finished. I can't do this anymore, he whispered. To no one, or to everyone. He walked across the room, not fast, not slow, just inevitable. His bare feet quiet on the wooden floor. He opened a drawer, searched, found a knife. The kind used in kitchens, not rituals. Ordinary, plain, final. Seranna leaned forward, just slightly in the dark. Instinctively, the old hunger stirred. A decade ago, even a century ago, she would have welcomed this. A soul about to slip, easy to take, easy to silence. No struggle, no consequence. But that was before Eldritch, before winter, before she had learned that pain was not permission. She narrowed her eyes, studying him, not to feed, but to understand. The man held the knife in trembling hands, turned it slightly, so the edge caught what little morning light remained. He brought it close to his wrist. Then he looked up. "Are you watching?" he asked, not to Seranna, but to something greater. "Are you watching now? All those prayers I whispered when I was younger, you never answered. Never. So why the hell should I ask now?" His voice cracked. "You gave me love and ripped it away. You gave me hope and pissed on it. You gave me life. But what for? Just to watch me fall?" His breath stuttered. His grip tightened. Seranna remained in the shadows, still unseen, still silent. She could speak. She could stop him. She could say, "You are not your pain. You are not the betrayal. You are the one who felt it and still breathes. Pain is not your name. It is the storm that shapes you. You are not a victim. You are the fire that refuses to die, even in the rain." She could tell him what Eldritch had told her, what winter had made her become, that the human spirit is not the wound, but the will to rise in spite of it. But she did not speak, because the moment was not hers, it was his. And then, just as quietly as it had begun, he let the knife slip from his hand. It fell to the floor with a soft clatter that sounded louder than thunder. He didn't cry. He didn't kneel. He just breathed. Walked back to the record player. He placed the needle gently down on the vinyl. The strings began again, sorrowful, distant, alive. And he sat like before in that same old chair. And then he spoke, softer this time, not to the sky, not to a god, not even to himself. "I cannot. I want to, but I cannot," he exhaled. "If I quit, I lose, and I've lost enough already. Maybe there's something left. I don't know what it is, but I feel something." From the corner of the room, hidden deep within the shadows, Seranna felt something too. Not hunger, not power, something quieter, something warmer, something human. And for the first time in a very long time, she let it stay. The record spun slowly now, a ghost dragging its fingers across the strings, notes stretched long and fragile, as though even the music was too tired to go on. The man sat, then stood. He wasn't restless, just empty. A vessel rattling quietly in a house that no longer felt like home. He looked up, not at the ceiling, not at God, just up, as if that might help his words fall somewhere besides the floor. "I cannot go on," he said. Seranna listened, motionless in the dark. Something inside her stilled. "I have nothing. I don't see the point. I don't see any point. In 100 years, someone else will live in this house. In 100 years, no one will remember my name. In 100 years, the money I saved, the things I cared about, they'll be someone else's concern. So what's the point? Why am I here?" His voice wasn't angry now. It was smaller than that, a thread unraveling. "For years I prayed. For years I believed. I gave. I forgave. I stayed kind. I stayed good. I never cheated, never betrayed anyone. I made mistakes when I was young, sure, but nothing cruel. I lived right." He looked down at his hands as if they were some failed promise. "And I got nothing for it." He took a breath that sounded too old for his young face. No signs, no guidance, no whisper in the dark. Nothing to say, "You're seen." Nothing to say, "It mattered." Seranna's fingers gripped the edges of her hiding place. His words. They were hers once. She had said the same thing once, on her knees in a church long buried beneath time. Begging, bleeding, abandoned. She stepped forward, just once. The motion was slow, deliberate, not to threaten, not to consume, but to exist, to be seen. A sliver of her figure caught the faint rim of light on the floor. A shadow moved, then a form. He turned. He saw her. At first, terror, pure instinctual. His body flinched, breath caught. A woman stepped out from the shadows like sorrow made flesh. Long black hair, pale skin, red lips that had not smiled in a century, eyes heavy with ages of silence. But she didn't move closer. She didn't bare her teeth. She only spoke. "I have watched you in your pain," she said. Her voice was velvet and ash. "I have watched you fight a battle I have fought 1,000 times. Do not give in." He stared, his voice barely a whisper. "Are you my sign?" The question hung in the air like breath in winter. And Seranna, the monster, the myth, the memory of everything broken, did not laugh, did not strike, did not vanish. She simply stood there, the shadow of a woman who had once asked the same question, to a God who never answered. But perhaps...
For those who connect with the words of Professor Shadow, for those the stories touch, deeper. The Vault holds more: full audiobooks, secret lore, the Becoming the Professor course, the Eldritch Codex. New tales added weekly, only for those ready to go deeper. Click the join button below and unlock the Vault.
Perhaps she was the answer now. They sat opposite one another. The record long stopped. The silence now deeper than music. He, Nathan, had not moved since she stepped from the shadows. The only sound was the wind brushing the old glass panes and the quiet ache of a fire that had never been lit. Seranna did not attempt to hide what she was. She had revealed herself, not fully, not yet, but enough to let truth breathe in the room like smoke. Nathan rubbed his hands together, not from cold, from thought. "I meant what I said," he murmured. "I still don't see the point. Life, I've tried, but I'm alone, forgotten, passed over. What is the purpose of any of it?" Seranna tilted her head, as if she'd been waiting for that question for a century. "The purpose of life," she said slowly, "is not given. It is made." Nathan frowned. That sounds like something written on a poster in a therapist's office. Seranna smiled, just slightly. "No, that would say, believe in yourself. This is different. This is fire." He leaned forward. "Then tell me, really, what is it? The point of staying? Of trying again? What stops us from quitting, when quitting makes more sense?" Seranna looked at him, and for a moment she wasn't the predator, the relic, the vampire. She was simply the one who had lived. "What stops us is the part of us that still remembers. We are ourselves," she said. "The part that was not broken, the part that still burns even when everything around us is ash, that small, stubborn spark that whispers, "I am not done yet." Nathan looked down. But what if that spark goes out? Seranna's voice grew quieter. "Then it is you who must relight it." She leaned in. "You are not here to be remembered. You are not here to be thanked. You are not here to be granted purpose by another man, another god, another system. You are here to become, to build your soul as one builds a cathedral with vision, sweat, defiance, and glory, to create yourself, thought by thought, act by act, and not for applause, not for reward, but because you exist." Nathan blinked. "But if I fail?" "Then fail beautifully," she said. "But do not vanish. Do not surrender. That is the only real sin, not loss, but erasure." He sat still, words caught in his throat, and then he saw it. A glint, a flicker, a flash of something beneath her lip. A fang. His voice broke. What are you?" Seranna stood, her silhouette framed in the fading light. She did not hiss. She did not step forward. She only said, "I am what happens when someone does give up. When pain is allowed to reshape the soul into something sharp. When the fire is not used to build, but to burn." She turned to him, not as a monster, but as a warning. "You are at a choice. Either you carve yourself from the stone of this sorrow, or you let the darkness carve you." The room was silent again, but something had changed. In him, and perhaps in her, the air between them had grown still again. The room had not changed. Same broken light, same dust in the air, but something in him had shifted, and she saw it. Nathan stared at her for a long moment, then softly, almost childlike, "I know what you are." She didn't flinch. "You're a vampire," he continued. "I've seen the movies. You came out of the shadow. You haven't breathed once. And I saw your fang. If I had that, if I had what you have, it would be so much better. The strength, the power, the escape." Something in Seranna snapped. She didn't move forward, didn't need to. Her presence alone hit him like a thunderclap. Her eyes narrowed. Her voice, when it came, was a storm barely leashed. "You fool!" Nathan instinctively pulled back. "Do you think this is a gift?" she hissed. "You think this power makes anything better?" She stepped closer, her face a breath away from fury. "You see a fan and think it means freedom. You see a shadow and think it means control. But what you don't see, what you never see in your stories, is what it costs." She turned from him, as if speaking to a world that never listened. "This is not life. This is unlife. Hunger without end. Days that bleed into years until memory decays, until joy is no longer a word, just a sound. You don't feel anymore. Not really. You consume, you endure, you rot slower." Then she turned back, her voice low but cutting, the way only truth can be. "You say, if you had what I have, it would be better. But what I have is what happens when someone gives up. When you surrender, not just hope, but self. You do not want this, not if there is even a flicker of fire left in you, not if you still feel. Because the moment you become what I am, you stop being what you could be." Nathan looked at her, stunned, sobered, silent, and Seranna, cold, immortal, once a god among the dying, told him a truth he would never forget. There was a village once. She stared past the walls now, past the present, into the black corridors of memory. A small one, north of the mountains. They mocked me when I was young, hurt me, humiliated me. When I changed, when I became, I returned. Her voice dropped. I didn't destroy the village. I erased it. Nathan swallowed. The women, the men, the children, even the animals. I wiped them from the face of the earth, not in rage, not in fire, in silence, because I could, because there was no one left in me to say no. She looked at him now, and there was no hunger in her eyes, only sorrow. That is not power, that is absence, the complete erasure of self, of principle, of meaning. She stepped closer again, gently this time. You still ask what the point of life is. I will tell you. She held his gaze. The point is to never let the world make you less than what you know yourself to be. Not for a woman, not for a god, not for pain, not even for death. Nathan looked at her, not in fear now, but in reverence. She, the monster, had just given him the most human gift of all, a reason not to become her. The record had stopped. The light through the windows had gone. Outside the world was wrapped in velvet, and only now did Seranna notice. She turned toward the window. The sun was long buried. The sky above was black and endless, pierced by stars that looked down like silent witnesses. She blinked slowly. It's night, she murmured. Already. They had spoken the whole day away. In another lifetime, she would have vanished the moment darkness returned, back to her hidden world, her ancient refuge. She had no chains here, no wards held her. She was free. She could leave, or feed, and yet she lingered. Nathan spoke first, his voice gentler now, as if shaped by gratitude rather than despair. I know you must go, he said, but I feel like you really were the sign I was looking for. Seranna turned to him. I have been called many things, she said. Monster, myth, mistake, but never a sign. Her lips curved just slightly, a shadow of something warm. But if it helps you, so be it. She began to walk toward the door, slow and soundless. The night air whispered through the cracks, welcoming her home. But Nathan stood. He spoke again, firmer now. I have never met someone like you, not just because of what you are, but because of what you said. She paused. Those words, he continued, I knew them. Somewhere deep inside, I just couldn't reach them. They were scattered, like broken pieces of a mirror. I knew the shape, but I couldn't see myself in them. You helped me put them back together. And now, I feel like I'm not just ready to stand again. I'm ready to ignite the fire within me. Seranna did not speak for a long moment, and when she did, her voice was almost reverent. Then I have done more this night than I have in the last 100 years. She turned once more, the dark around her now folding like wings. I must go. Nathan stepped forward, but did not chase her. His voice cracked, sincere. Please, come again. Visit me. You are the strength that helped me this day. She looked at him, and something moved in her. Not hunger, not memory, but a recognition, a truth that burned quietly in the soul she once thought dead. Her final words, spoken into the stillness, echoed with the weight of someone who had once been lost, and now, perhaps, was not. We do not exist to be remembered. We exist to remember ourselves, and in doing so, we become worthy of the fire within. Then she vanished into the night, not as shadow, not as death, but as something becoming. One week had passed. The house was the same. Old wood, cracked stone, shadows that clung to the edges of thought, but Nathan had changed. He stood now in the heart of a glass tower downtown, high above the noise of the city. His office was sharp, minimal, controlled. He was no ordinary employee. He never had been. He just forgot. Executive-level strategist for a global architecture firm. The kind of job people envy but rarely understand. The pressure was high, the consequences higher, but Nathan walked with certainty now. Not arrogance, just a quiet, sovereign resolve. His voice was clear, measured. Move the Casimir proposal to Wednesday. Tell Lee we're keeping the preliminary model but revising the sequence. And get Morgan in here. We need to finalise the Dubai report today, not next week. He wasn't barking orders. He was directing reality, coordinating ideas, action, purpose, all aligned. People listened, not out of fear, out of clarity. He returned to his desk, ready to review the numbers, when he overheard something from across the room. Two younger team members, one dawdling at a task that had long since passed its deadline, the other teasing him. "Come on, man. Do you want to live forever?" Nathan paused. Something in the phrase chilled him, not with fear, but memory. He walked over, calm, composed. "I heard what you said." The two looked up, nervous. Nathan gave a half smile, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Let me tell you something about that question. Do you want to live forever?" He looked past them now, to something they couldn't see. "There's a passage I once read, from a philosopher few people read anymore. She said that if a robot could live forever, if it were indestructible, invulnerable, untouchable, it could have no values." The two looked confused. Nathan continued, "Why?" "Because it could never lose, never die. It would have no reason to choose one thing over another. It would have no urgency, no meaning. Purpose only matters because life can be lost, because time does run out. That's what makes effort sacred." He looked at them, fully present. "So no, I don't want to live forever. I just want to live fully, purposefully, before I don't." The silence that followed was honest, and then he turned, walked back to his desk, and returned to building the life he had nearly abandoned, brick by brick, value by value, thought by thought. Somewhere, a record might have been playing, but he didn't need music to remember the night that saved him. He only needed fire.